Hello, all. I felt reluctant to share this story because I was a bit embarrassed, but now that I'm over something so trivial, I figured y'all might enjoy it. So, a new grocery store opened up in our relatively small town early this summer. I've literally only been in it once, grand opening, before this story takes place because it's halfway downtown, and I am a rural resident who would much rather shop at a different location, which is literally the first store upon coming into town. Because of this, I had absolutely no recollection of the employee uniforms or else would have selected my clothes a touch differently. Well, I walked in with black dress pants, but they were pretty wear and tear along the bottom because everything is either slightly too long or way too short for me, and I never get around to hemming my pants, so they're usually questionable 5 or 6 months down the line. On top of this, I was wearing a black light fleece jacket from my workplace and had the company logo on the front. When I shop, I typically am so focused on what I'm doing, I don't even stray my gaze away at other people outside of a peripheral. Are we going to be in each other's way? And the like. So, onwards. I'm sizing up something I'm interested in and start doing math in my head with a little aid of hand gestures. It's kind of like pencil/paper math, the way I envision it, using the blank air to write. I know it's weird, but it works for me. While comparing my needs and wants vis my budget in the freezer foods department, I heard a small hey behind me. Sounded like it was a bit far off, and since anyone who knows me knows to be loud, hearing loss runs in the family, so I'm basically 10 or less years off from needing hearing aids barring high-pitched noises, which you'd think I was a dog with how they bring me to my knees, or specifically call my name, imagined it was none of my dang business. A slightly frustrated "excuse me" followed a few seconds later. I honest-to-God thought at that moment, would you just help her? I don't want to hear her annoying tone. I was not in the best of moods, so a lot of stupid things would set me off. Finally, the back of my jacket was being pulled. What in the world? I whip around, shrugging off the hand that held me, and there's this woman somewhere along in her 40s or so, about a half-foot taller than me, so I end up staring in the wrong place. She was definitely dressed for summer. After looking up, I'm 5'7", pushing 5'8", so she was fairly taller than me, and catching a death glare. She started spouting off how rude I was for not paying attention, and I should even be reported for ogling her chest. She was wearing a very revealing top. Oh boy, awkward. I can't recall exactly what she wanted. Looking for a specific product, I know that much, but the condescending tone pretty much made everything she said nothing more than static noise. As my anger rose and rose and rose, I finally interrupted her and said, "Look, you witch, I don't work here, so leave me alone." I was about to walk away, but then she grabbed me, lifted me by my jacket, and pushed me up against a freezer door up about a foot, so I'm dangling my footsies in the air, now legitimately scared, the anger flowing down and out of me instantly. Holy Toledo, she is going to kill me. She leans in and starts barking about what a pathetic piece of trash I am, and I'm going to be fired and charged for sexual harassment, and that a loser like I am is going to die alone because no one likes a fatty. I'm overweight, but not grossly obese like Jabba the Hutt. More of a my general figure doesn't really change shape no matter how much weight I lose. Unexpectedly, she backs up suddenly and drops me. I don't quite catch the floor, tripping and stumbling along the aisle, my shoulders taking the brunt of it. I had enough senses to control how I felt. Well, lucky me, she got scared because an employee driving a pallet comes around the corner, and just as I'm picking myself up off the floor, she asks if I'm all right, fairly confused about what's going on. I limp over, turn around, and point to the now fleeing entitled woman going around the opposite end of the aisle and tell her that the woman assaulted me and call the police. She panicky tells me to just stay there and sprints towards the front of the store. The freezer department is isolated as the farthest section of the store. I'm stubborn and disregard staying there and making my way to the front. It takes a few solid minutes, and along the way I hear a lot of commotion. By the time I see anything, the manager is standing in front of the exit, apparently locked automatic doors so they weren't opening, and she was squawking all sorts of nonsense. Other customers see me and rush over to see if I'm okay, and this crazy, freaking lady just death glares at me again and says I'm just faking it and that I was a disgusting pig who was trying to touch her. The manager speaks up and says, well, the police can look over the tapes to see for themselves. Well, the blood drained out of that woman so fast everyone instantly knew she was full of it. About 15 minutes later, the police arrived and spent another half hour doing all the procedure stuff, asking questions, taking statements. They did review the tapes, of course, and asked if I wanted to press charges. I said yes. They still hauled her off into their car, and the manager gave me a $250 gift card. I was at a store checking the prices of some clearance clothes at a scanner. I had literally just begun, only scanned one item and had a stack more. This elderly lady came up behind me and softly said, "Excuse me." I whipped around with a wide-eyed, "Yes, because I have an issue with being touched. She had not touched me. I'm just hyper-aware and didn't want to allow a chance." She asked if I could help her get a shirt down. I immediately thought of y'all. I said, "Sure, I can try. I'm not taller than you by much." I was confused if she thought I worked there. I was dressed like I could possibly be an employee, but I had been scanning a buggy full of clothes when she approached me, and typically the older folks know what that means. As we were walking to where she had pointed, she said there were poles with hooks against the wall for getting down the clothes that were higher up. I thought, okay, maybe she doesn't want to because she has a bad back and just can't bend that way. She said she had been waiting forever for somebody for a long time. When we arrived, she pointed at the shirt, and then the hook and I suggested maybe I could try getting the shirt without the hook first. I really try not to get stared down by the real employees for anxiety purposes. I asked what size she wanted down. She said large and reached to try to look through the tag. I hurried to find the large and got it down on my tiptoes so she wouldn't strain to reach or feel the need to go out of her way to find it for me first. As I handed her the shirt, I saw that her right arm was in a large blue cast from her knuckles to upper arm. She had a broken arm. I asked if she wanted any of the other colors while I was there, and she declined, but we had a short, pleasant conversation about our clothing styles, both being about comfort over fashion. Basically, just not skin tight. Then we went on our merry separate ways. I realized only just now while typing this that I had left my personal bag in the buggy under the clothes at the scanner. Facepalm. That was dumb of me, but I acted before I thought. I try to be kind to kind people, and my consistency keeps me alive. So, the irate part of this story of helping a shopper in a store I don't work at is that as I walked with the elderly lady over to the shirt, I saw two actual employees gossiping to each other, having a good time within earshot. As I walked back to my buggy, the three of us made eye contact. They had been watching me and the elderly lady, and they were sneering at me as I was the one who had been watching them not doing my job. I just gave them a dead-eyed look of, "I just did your job and you sicken me," and did not break eye contact until both of them did. They promptly separated and began to tidy shelves and racks nearby when they saw I did not go far and started scanning my stuff in their vicinity. This happened a couple of years ago. We were traveling from Tennessee to Florida a couple of days after New Year's Eve. We had stopped in Georgia because it had been snowing heavily and it was taking longer than usual to drive through. We were praying as we drove through the turnpike. I am not religious because everyone was sliding through and there were too many close calls to take a breath. It was so bad that we decided to stop at the Denny's, connected to a hotel that had a Cracker Barrel next door. We walked in and found out that although they did have electricity, a lot of businesses throughout the way had lost theirs. No one, except for one cook, not the main one, the manager and the waitress, were on shift as they couldn't leave due to the icy and snowy condition. There were about 20 of us in total in the restaurant. Everyone was hungry and hunkering down for what would be a few hours perhaps. We were told by the manager that there really wasn't much they could do for us. At this point, a guy from the military volunteered to help put in basic breakfast orders. He had been a chef. Others would help in the kitchen or outside. Although the manager could not have anyone in the kitchen, health code violations, the actual staff took over in the kitchen while we took basic orders and helped feed each other. Never forgot that day. It was very sweet. I just got off of work, which was busy. I wanted to treat myself to a new pair of shoes. I was walking in the women's section and found shoes that I wanted. I was searching for my size and some lady stops me and says, "Since you're clearly watching me, can you at least be useful and find these boots in my size?" I said, "No, ma'am, I don't work here. I actually work at the Walmart across the street." She replied, "Sure, I know you're just trying to catch me stealing, aren't you? Customer service here sucks." She didn't even buy anything. She stormed out while I was at the counter. A couple of weeks ago, my kids and their neighbors decided to have a bake sale. We live in a tourist area with high foot traffic, and the kids make a killing. I tell the kids I ought to charge them for the labor. I said I'd help bake and ingredients so they learn the concept of net gains, but instead I'll donate to their cause and just to bring me back the money I lent them to make change. I love seeing the kids be entrepreneurial, work so hard, and get so excited at their success. After a couple of hours, the neighbor's son decides he's bored and wants to go home. So he tells my kid, "When you're done, come by and deliver half the money." Mine says, "Hey, that's not fair. If you're leaving, we should split the money now." Mind you, the bulk of their sales was my baking. Neighbor kid gets super angry, but mine sticks to their guns. They split the money and the kid leaves in a huff. Mine comes in a few hours later, having lugged home all the gear and cleaned up, annoyed that the neighbor kid got annoyed at them. Then I get a knock on the door. It's the neighbor's mom, with the kid who is still pouting. Mom's holding a receipt. Mom explains that they purchased a bunch of stuff for the bake sale. It cost a lot of money, and it's not fair that my kid is making money off their stuff and that they should be compensated for what they purchased. The receipt lists a bunch of items I immediately see they didn't use, like 2 boxes of cereal when they used 1, napkins that I'd ended up providing, but whatever. And never mind that her son went home early and left mine to clean up. And never mind that I'd been churning out batches of cookies all morning. I'm irked. They've taken what was a fun, cheerful day of kids making money hand over fist and shown up at my door making me engage in a super awkward conversation because they assume their kid can't be wrong. So I say, of course, and fetch my receipts. I sit down and, in front of them and out loud, calculate the cost of lemonade and cups used. I calculate the cost of flour, sugar, chocolate chips, vanilla, and butter per batch of cookies, multiplied by the number of batches made. I toss in the baking soda for free, so generous. I even subtract the value of leftover cookies. Did I mention I made a lot of cookies? The neighbor kid has to fork over $23. They got pretty quiet all of a sudden. I thanked the lady for making sure things were fair and offered her a plate of cookies to take home. She declined. The end.